Welcome to ThinkTech, raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. As part of the ThinkTech series, this is the Arts in Hawaii. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard. I'm the Managing Director of Kumukuhua Theater, and with me today is Richard Melendez. He is the Managing Editor of Abstract Magazine. And please remember that we broadcast live on the internet at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you want links to our live streams or any of our previous broadcasts, just go to thinktechhawaii.com. If you want to join us in our downtown studio gallery for any of our shows, write to j@thinktechhawaii.com. Richard Melendez is the managing editor of Abstract Magazine and a freelance writer and blogger. And let's just show everyone, I know people have seen Abstract Magazine around. It's had 3 issues thus far. Oh, the green one is disappearing because of the background.
Okay.
This is green. We'll hide that. That was the first issue. The second is the orange, and the current issue is the pink.
Yep.
And each of these looks very different. This one in particular, I kind of like that. I've been tempted to wear green on the show just to have that exact thing happen. So to give us we'll start off with your elevator speech about Abstract Magazine and go from there. What is Abstract Magazine?
Abstract is a quarterly magazine produced locally with a local crew, writers, contributors, graphic designers, and it's a lifestyle and arts magazine. It's meant as sort of an incubator for emerging designers. So you have designers who are coming out of college who may not have a lot of hands-on experience in working in design or working in print specifically. So the magazine is meant to be sort of a proving ground for them to kind of get their feet wet, get their hands dirty, and learn the trade. And in the meantime, we've got a staff of capable photographers as well as writers, who provide the content for the magazine.
Yeah. And writers, talk about writers, you have a slew of a wide variety of writers. Could you tell us a little
Exactly.
more?
We've got all sorts of writers who have been writing for publications in Hawaii for several years, people who are new and up and coming. We've got people who came from Bamboo Ridge, the fiction side of things, such as Donna Chang, Misty Saniko, myself included, who've come from a fiction background and kind of transferred over here. So we've got writers from all sorts of backgrounds and levels of experience from around the island.
Yeah, and the magazine has a pretty incredible look and feel to it. It's not your standard average size for a magazine. It's a little bit smaller. It's very thick. It's very high quality paper.
Yep.
It feels more like a journal of sorts,
Right.
I think.
Right, and that's exactly what we wanted to go for.
Yeah, it's a little more purse friendly.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Depending on the size of your purse, I can easily put that in my bag on a Saturday and go to Gordon Biersch, which I did this weekend, and sit and read through the entire magazine.
And not worry about it getting shredded while it's in your purse in the meantime.
Right.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people ask us if it's free. I mean, it is a free publication, but a lot of people look at it and, are you sure it's free? Can I take one? Can I take a second one? Like, yeah, help yourself, it's free. So that's one thing we have to try to communicate better, perhaps, but it's a free publication, even though it doesn't look it.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me a little bit of when I was in college, and I went to an professional actors training program. The shows that we did had a great deal of money put into them. When we did the show 9, we had what looked like a marble MGM lion fountain in the middle of the stage, and the customers flew to New York to buy the material for our costumes. This was in college. It has never happened again since, to me. So I wonder if this is a place for a lot of designers to start, to begin to hone their wares, but as you go out in the world, coming into another opportunity like this is kind of rare, don't you think?
I'd say so. I mean, it's, like I said, meant to be a proving ground for the emerging artists, graphic designers. A lot of them have, based on the work they've done in just the first couple of issues alone, have found bigger and better things. Just based on the designs that they've done for us, they've added that to the portfolio and have gotten permanent gigs or other designing gigs.
Already, after only 3 issues, it
Right.
works, apparently.
Yeah, it does. And we've got new graphic designers coming in all the time, as well as writers too.
It has, maybe we can show a little bit. It just has a really beautiful look to it. So there's a lot of white. This magazine is not afraid of white space.
Yeah, and that varies from issue to issue, designer to designer, just depending how much page space they have to work with, or what the designer's aesthetic sense is, what pictures they have to work with. So it'll vary. It's not so much a conscious decision that we want a lot of white in all the pages, but just some of the articles happen to fall that way, just depending on how many pages we had for them to work with, or how much words versus photos versus pages.
Yeah. So there's a different designer for each of these 3 issues entirely?
For each article. Each article has a different design team. So you have the emerging designer, who's the up-and-comer from at school, and then they're mentored by a veteran designer, somebody who's well-established in the business. We've got folks from Design Asylum and some of the other wall-to-wall studios, some of the other major design firms that have been operating for a long time, and these mentors have been in the field for many years. So they're the mentors to these emerging designers, kind of guiding them on the process and helping them, teaching them tricks, techniques, and helping them through the process of designing and laying out each article.
And there's a cohesiveness to each issue. So those designers, there's you. Is it you that they're coming? It's all coming back to make sure that it maintains a cohesive look.
It's coming back through the editorial team, which is James Charisma, the editor-in-chief, myself, Karen Iwamoto, who's the copy editor, and then Scott Kawamura. He's the artistic director, and he oversees pretty much the whole design side, while James, myself, and Karen handle the editorial side. But everything comes to us at the end, or towards the end of the process. We get to look over everything, make sure there is some sort of cohesiveness. We proof it to death, look for typos and consistency overall.
Well, and it's working. And I hope that you'd never get afraid of the white space, because it adds a leisurely feel to it when I sit down and read it. Are you familiar at all with W magazine?
Yes.
That's like exhausting sometimes, and then you'll get to a nice editorial spread and you feel like you can relax a little bit. Or the New Yorker. Yeah. The font is so small in the New Yorker. I want to read every single article, but and there's a lot of words per article. Their average has got to be kind of crazy. What is your average length for stories here?
For the feature pieces, probably about 1,000 to 1,200 words. And then we're trying to incorporate more we're calling bite-sized content. I mean, the first issue was very much a journal. We had a lot of feature-length articles. So for the next 2 issues and the 4th issue coming up, we're trying to work in more smaller bite-sized content. That varies from maybe 100, 300, 500 word pieces that can kind of be dropped in here and there throughout the issue.
More snapshots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And something else is very unique about this. It's not just that the outside of it changes drastically for issue to issue. Tell us about
the themes?
The internal issue to issue differences.
Each issue has a theme, and all the articles and content within that issue will revolve and touch upon that theme in one way or another. Our first issue, the theme was First Friday, and the idea being it's our first issue, it's a celebration. What better way to kind of tie that in than to have an issue focused on First Friday. So all the stories in the First Friday issue revolve around the First Friday events themselves, either the history of First Friday, talking with people involved with First Friday, artists, vendors, merchants, as well as the history of Chinatown. So pieces that touch upon Chinatown, the goings-ons in there, even a piece that talked about the crime in Chinatown at the time. Second issue, with such a positive response from the first issue, we were kind of feeling a bit hardcore, feeling a bit emboldened. So the second issue, fittingly enough, was the hardcore issue, Hardcore Honolulu. So we had a piece about, the window washers who do the high rises throughout Honolulu.
Yeah.
So we had a story about them. I did a piece talking to a motorcycle club and what they do and why they do it. So we had more hardcore motorcycle gang, biker gang. So this sounds more menacing when I put that out there. And then the third issue, as we get further down the line and kind of finding our groove, we kind of ruminated a bit on collaboration. So the third issue is the collaboration issue. So we talked to people or organizations that revolved around collaboration one way or another. I did a piece about the collaboration surrounding the Design Week. which is coming up. It's a collaboration between AIGA and Hawaii Printers and other organizations designed to make that happen. We had some pieces about Kaka'ako, how the merchants there, the community that they're trying to build, the artistic scene through there. So collaboration is the theme throughout that issue. And the fourth issue coming up is the Honolulu intrigue issue. So we're talking about intriguing stories, mysteries, hidden history, things that people maybe know nothing about or maybe knew a little bit about but didn't know the full story. So we've got a piece about secret societies, and we're doing pieces about ruins, abandoned buildings. We spoke to a forensic scientist, so just kind of mysterious types of stories through there, through the intrigue issue.
I can't wait. One of the coolest things about it is you take a topic like Chinatown, and then you have a broad lattice work of writers who are bringing pieces that I'm assuming they're pitching their ideas, so it's something that they care about. Am I just assuming too much?
No, it's pretty much a little both. We do have some writers, we do approach them, say, hey, here's the theme for the next issue. Do you have any ideas? Anything you want to pitch to us? Sometimes we've got some content we've already got in mind between James, Karen, and myself. We've kind of got a rough outline of stories that we might want to see in the issue, and we'll discuss it among ourselves, and then we'll pitch those to the writers, saying, hey, would you want to write for our issue? How would you feel about doing a story about, ghosts, for example, and such? And if they're comfortable with it, there'll be a back and forth on the type of spin to put on that, what they can bring to that story, and we'll take it from there.
So, and what's very cool about it is everybody appears to be writing about something that really resonates for them. We'll say that. Mm-hmm. And you have fairly scholarly writers, like Jason Ellenwood is bringing, and he's had an article in all three of them.
Correct.
Right? Jason's a Hawaiian language studies student and spends a lot of time in the archives. Yep. I know this, I know him. So he brings a more scholarly perspective. I think that what I have seen are more fun and lighthearted and intriguing and almost a little literary. I think yours sound a little more literary.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Is it the intention of the magazine to continue jumping from one focus to another, or to find a niche?
You mean as far as the themes or just the content within? I mean, a little both. We are still trying to find our groove. Like I said, we're trying to incorporate the smaller bite-sized content. We're trying to find a balance between what the designers want to do, what they're able to do, versus the kind of written content we want to include. So, I mean, you have seen an evolution from the first three, soon to be the fourth issue. So there has been an evolution. I don't know how deliberate it is. I think it's sort of happenstance. We'll see let's see what, if this works this time around, and we'll incorporate that. But, so it's, I'd say it's a bit happenstance and a bit deliberate guiding of what we do include.
And what is, this is a big question, and I know we've just got a couple minutes left before the break, but what is works? How are you deciding, what does works look like at Works?
I think probably, for me, I'll say minimum amount of hiccups or stress incorporated. We're trying to work on the timeline. At what point do we bring in the designers? I mean, we'll assign the story, so at what point does the photographer come into that story? What point does the designer come into that story, for example? So we've been messing with that timeline several times, and just trying to see what works best for the designers so they're not stuck in a crunch. So the photographer's not out there in limbo wondering, do I need to go out, what's going on? And then also so we have enough time to review all the content before it goes to the final press. So that's one of the things we've been messing around with a bit, is the timeline when everything happens. So fortunate thing is we've already planned out most of next year. So we've got a bit of an advanced look, so we can start, in theory, assigning articles. We can have somebody working on a piece for the 6th issue already. So we're not stressing on the 4th issue and then crunching on the 5th issue. I mean, we can kind of fill out some of the issues ahead of time and work with that.
Oh, so everyone is finding a groove.
Yeah, we're all trying. We're all trying.
I'm really excited about the intrigue issue. Can you tell us what color it's going to be, at least?
What I understand, it's going to be a metallic blue.
Ooh, excellent. It really is a nice it really is a nice little package of information and entertainment, and we are such a small community here that you read about people and then you meet them the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does seem that it's very. Someone wrote scrappy, singular Chinatown and more collaborative Kaka'ako. There are these two different feelings in the neighborhoods, is in one of the articles that I read. But it does seem that it's very Chinatown and Kaka'ako focused. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know how intentional that is. I mean, we do want to focus on Honolulu in general, and we do have articles in the third issue. We talk about the Ma'o organic farms out in Waianae, and we do include pieces from throughout the island. But I think probably for the first few issues, it kind of fell that way. I think because a lot of us personally, each of the writers and photographers, are very familiar with the scenes that are going on, or maybe know people, that are doing certain activities in that area. So I think it just kind of happened that, wow, we've got a lot of Kaka'ako related content this issue and such. So, I mean, we are consciously trying to broaden things, but I think just...
I'm not saying it's bad.
Oh, no.
I mean, it works for me. I spend most of my time within those two neighborhoods, but it's something that I notice.
Yeah, and it's something we've been aware of too. Yeah, we don't want it to be just the Kaka'ako magazine or the magazine of Chinatown. We do want to broaden that, but yeah, we are aware that it has been... been focused, so...
Okay, we're going to take our first break. We'll be back in just a moment. This is The Arts in Hawaii. I'm Donna Blanchard, Managing Director of Kumukuhoi Theater. I'm talking with Richard Melendez, the Managing Editor of Abstract Magazine, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Dan Bauer and I'm the General Manager of the Plaza Club. The Plaza Club is Honolulu's premier business club. We're located in the heart of the financial district on historic Fort Street Mall. On the 20th and 21st floors atop the Pioneer Plaza, our commanding skyline views, along with our award-winning cuisine and service, are known as the place to do business downtown. We offer professional as well as social events and programs to our members and their guests, all tailored to enrich their professional and personal lives, and to give them the cutting edge that they deserve in business. Why don't you consider becoming a member of the club? Call me at 531-7788, or come see me and let's talk business and how the Plaza Club can work for you. Again, my name is Dan Bauer. I'm the General Manager of the club, and I'm here for you.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is The Arts in Hawaii. I am Donna Blanchard, and I am talking with Richard Melendez of Abstract Magazine. And let's take it back a step, a few large steps right now, and let's talk about how you got into this. Were you born and raised here?
No, I was actually born and raised in Long Island, New York.
Long Island.
So, and I've lived here, I'll make 22 years this February.
Did you come here for school?
No, actually my sister used to be in the Navy, and she was stationed here, and she said, why don't you come out and stay with me for a while? And I just never left. I've been here ever since.
Oh, okay. What did you study in school? What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a tough question. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I've always written in one capacity or another since I was in elementary school, if not sooner. I've always loved the arts in one capacity or another. I'm a huge comic book geek. I actually dabbled in radio for a few years of high school, and I tried all these different things, but nothing really spoke to me that this is what I want to do as a career. I was a communications major in college, and again, not knowing what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be when I grew up, so to speak, I just never finished getting my degree and just kind of entered the workforce, kind of trying to find my niche, I guess.
Okay. So, but everything you've talked about is forms of expression.
Exactly, yeah. And I guess looking back, I could see that was a common theme, either creativity or some form of expression.
So you, at what point did you start, let's see, you studied communications, at some point you came out here, you had a regular day job?
Yeah, I worked retail for several years. I worked at a print shop. Yeah, I worked at a print shop. In fact, Tom Blue, one of our, who publishes our publication, Tom Blue Electric Pencil. So I worked for them for about 8 or 9 years.
Oh, okay.
And such, and I've hopped around. Yeah.
Okay, and then the first time you wrote anything. Now, I know that you entered a contest for Bamboo Ridge, but hadn't you'd written before that you were keeping a blog, you doing something?
Right. I mean, like I said, I've always written in some capacity or another since I was young. I've always written fiction. I've always written essays. I've written just for my sake. Didn't share it, didn't publish it, or share with a few friends. I had a poorly maintained blog that I think I updated once a year or something like that before it died. But there was a contest for Bamboo Ridge, a local literary journal run by Gary Chalk and Darrell Lum. They were having a monthly contest. And I think at the time it was a 100-word short story contest, but they've since expanded it to just a general short story contest. Based on a running theme, they change every month. And I had a couple of people encourage me, oh, you should go ahead and enter that. And I kind of saw the ad a few times. I think in the Honolulu Weekly, when they were still around, they posted an ad looking for contest entries. And I said, sure, maybe it's a sign. And I just went ahead and I entered.
Wait, was it hard to do? To put it out there like that? You didn't just say sure.
No, I had an internal argument with myself.
Yeah,
like I said,
bet.
I mean, I've written for years, but sharing it or getting it out there was the big hurdle that I hadn't yet jumped over.
Yeah, here's what intrigues me. You said you've always written, and some of it you would share. So some of what you were writing, you were not even writing to share. And let's examine a little bit that process of writing something, and what's the why for you?
Perhaps a form of expression. I don't know. At the risk of sounding like I've got a mental health issue, I've got voices in my head. I'll hear conversations that just come to me in my head. I'll look at a person walking down the street. I'm an avid people watcher. So I'll sit at the airport at Ala Moana Park or something, and you'll see somebody walk by, and I go, oh, that's curious. And in my mind, I'll just create this whole story about that person. Yeah.
That's not mental health.
So, well, just the voices aspect. Yeah, the voices aspect. But yeah, in my mind, I'll create a conversation. Well, if I talk to that person, what would happen? Or even like anticipation of, I've got to talk to my boss. How's that conversation going to go? And of course, in my head, I'll have this whole conversation. I think all of us has done this. You prepare yourself. You have this whole conversation or debate prepared in your head.
On bad days, it is a straight-up argument.
Yeah, and it never falls like that in real life. But you've created this story in your head. And that's sort of, that's a big part of what I did, So I create all these stories, and these would, translate into a short story or a portion of a novel that's never finished, or even just an essay, something I'd be thinking about, and it just, whatever just felt like coming out. So I would just put it out there on paper.
Oh, okay, that's very cool. I do think to some extent, I can speak from my mind, from my creative mind, I have those kinds of conversations. Those things go on all the time. I don't commit them to typing, to paper, I was going to say, but it's so archaic. I don't. So to take those and feel inclined enough that you take the time to do that and to hone to a certain extent, I find very intriguing. You should put it in the next issue. So how much of that writing were you hoping to bring to audience, do you think?
I don't know. I really hadn't given it thought. In the back of my mind, it was like, I'd always want to be a professional writer or writing full-time, but when you've got a full-time job, you've got other things going on, it just never seemed like something that was at least in my immediate future. So it was just something, I'll keep writing because I enjoy writing. And whether or not I put it out there, that's something I'll address tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is that what was on the blog? Were you putting? What were you putting on the blog? What were you putting out there for general consumption?
A lot of embarrassing stuff, or stuff that I'm probably embarrassed to read. I haven't looked at that blog in years, and I hope nobody's watching this now thinking, oh, let me look up Richard Melendez's blog.
As soon as I get out of here, the second we're out of here.
Delete.
On my phone. I won't even wait to get back to the office.
Yeah, but I would just post whatever was on my mind, if it was something about politics, a humorous story or an anecdote of something that happened to me that day, comic book reviews, a movie review, just whatever I felt like talking about and sharing.
Okay, so it wasn't the short story.
No. Actually, I believe I do have some fiction on there too, now that I think about it, yeah. But it was just whatever I felt like putting out there and sharing. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for doing that internal study with me. Now someone tells you about this contest with Bamboo Ridge and you say, sure.
In a roundabout way, yeah.
And what was the subject?
I don't remember what the theme was. It was a 100-word short story. Oh, the subject of my story or the subject of the month
The theme, do you remember? Well,
I don't remember what the theme was, but at the time they were doing, I think they had about 5 different themes based on stories in previous issues of Bamboo Ridge. So they would take either like a title or a line from an earlier story, and you would kind of take that and run with it, whatever came to mind from that.
Okay.
Yes.
And you won?
I won, yeah. So my first published work, my first piece that I put out there, and I won. And so that kind of emboldened me, and I guess,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. No, but, so I entered the next month, and what happened with that, well, I was enjoying it, and I mean, it's not like I was getting a whole bunch of attention, and I wasn't a celebrity or anything, but I was just enjoying, I guess, the feedback, realizing like, well, maybe I am kind of good at this writing thing, I've only been doing it for 40 years, but yeah, so James Charisma, our editor-in-chief, had also been entering those contests, and I believe he'd won at least a couple of them. And I didn't know James at the time, I just knew him by name, seeing him pop up on the website.
Yeah, with a name like Charisma, it's kind of memorable.
And at the time, Bamboo Ridge was preparing for their 100th issue. So the advertiser was going to be doing a story about Bamboo Ridge preparing for the 100th issue, and they're going to interview Darrell Lum and Gary Chalk. And they also wanted to talk to some of the folks who had entered the contest and won, because that was the big thing they had going on at the time, was the monthly contest. So myself, James Charisma, and actually Dama Carrera Chang and Misty Saniko, who I mentioned earlier, also came. And they were all this with a few other writers. So there's probably about 8 to 10 of us, as well as the Bamboo Ridge folks. And so we were there for a brief interview. It was neat meeting all of them. The writers kind of went to the side, introduced ourselves, and kind of talked shop for a little bit. And we all, for the most part, I think we kind of kept in touch through Facebook, or maybe we'd run into each other through events here and there. And it had to be about 2 years had passed, and James had sends me a message. And he says, I'm putting together this magazine, I'm looking for writers, do you want in? And I said, sure. Again,
Sure.
And this one, there was no debate. It was just
no
like, yes.
hesitation. Okay.
Like, yes, I wanted in. But I did tell him, I said, James, I don't have a journalism background. I've never written nonfiction professionally. I said, I mean, pretty much all I've got going is my fiction, which you've seen on the Bamboo Ridge website. He said, that's perfectly fine. Just bring that sensibility to whatever you work on with us, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
James is charismatic. Actually, he's one of those people who is very good about making connections with people. When you talk with him, you really make a connection, and I think the more often we can do that in life, the more often we are going to be able to bring all of those people back in. It's like life is a mixing bowl, and it will just keep going. You just keep adding to the batter every time. Do you know how he came to the opportunity with Abstract? Was this an idea that he pitched?
As the legend goes, no. James and our senior photographer, Raul Soria, they used to be involved with a local publication called 808 Scenezine. And it was a self-published magazine that talked about music, arts, a lot of local activities just in kind of the music scene. And they took it over from the original showrunners, Raul and James, and they ran with it for a while, and funding dries up, it gets kind of harder and harder to put it together. It was something they did out of love. I mean, they weren't generating a whole lot of advertising revenue or anything. Excuse me, so they kind of struggled with that. They weren't able to put out an issue for a long time. What happened was, meantime, Electric Pencil, again, who's our publisher, part of the Honolulu family of companies, they were finding, as they had a lot of work come in from designers, they were realizing that a lot of the newer designers, to put it bluntly, didn't know what they were doing. They'd say, here are the files, this is what I want done, and it wasn't really jiving with reality of what a printer can do with what they were being given. So they were thinking, wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of workshop or some sort of class or some sort of activity where we can give these new trainers, new designers, some sort of training ground. Simultaneously, Raul and James were having this conversation, how can we keep this magazine going, what can we do? And they all kind of knew each other. Raul knew Matt Heim, I think from publishing photography or other activities, and everybody just kind of got to talking. And so they developed this incubator to develop the new emerging designers, and their training ground is the magazine itself. So this is the evolution of what those early discussions kind of
Where it all ended up.
generated. Yep.
Okay. But we're going to take another break. This is a perfect spot for it. I'm Donna Blanchard, Managing Director of Kumukuhua Theater. I'm talking with Richard Melendez of Abstract Magazine. This is the Arts in Hawaii, and we will be right back.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a physician from the Big Island of Hawaii, and I serve in Hawaii State Senate. I've embarked on a new program, Healthcare in Hawaii, here with ThinkTech. It's really a joy to bring in experts from across the state on all issues relating to healthcare. So we'll be coming to you every week with a different expert, different parts of the system, whether it's in government, the private sector, actual physicians. Maybe we'll bring patients here on the show too. Again, my name is Josh Green. This will be Healthcare in Hawaii.
Aloha, this is Jay Fidel. You know, ThinkTech and the Hawaii Venture Capital Association put on monthly luncheon panel programs at the Plaza Club here in Pioneer Plaza. Our program this time is on September 26th. It's called Solar in Hawaii. We're going to examine the solar industry and see what's in it for the long haul. We have a great panel, great moderator. We'll be sending out email on this. If you want to be in our email list to receive the details, check out thinktechhawaii.com. In any event, you can sign up for the program at hvca.org. Thanks. See you there. This is Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back and we're live. I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumukuhua Theater and the Arts in Hawaii, and I'm talking with Richard Melendez. And we are, now we've got a little bit of history of you and a little bit of the history of the magazine. Let's talk about the creative process, the ongoing creative process for the magazine. So you have James and Raul put together a really dynamic team of individuals, flowing team of individuals, and at some point for each issue you sit around a table, and how do you come up with something like intrigue or collaboration? How does that process work?
We try to think of topics that are, I guess, focused enough that you can get your hand around it. You know, collaboration, everybody knows in general what collaboration is about, but it's still broad enough that you can approach it from so many different angles. So we want a topic that, while it's easy to grasp, it's still broad enough that you can take it into a million different directions.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one approach to, you know, kind of how we do it. We sort of come up with a codex early in the process where we kind of break down story ideas, saying if this is the intrigue issue, what sort of stories would fit under the intrigue theme? And usually this takes place via email initially. You know, maybe James will kind of have a rough list that he has in mind, but he'll shoot it out to Karen and myself. And we have these long conversations via email that just go back and forth for a couple of days. But we'll say, you know, here's some of my ideas. Oh, that's great. What about this? Or what if we tweak that idea and do this instead? Hey, I know somebody who does that. So we'll go back and forth, and we'll fill out that list, that outline, and that becomes our Bible for the creation of the issue as we go down. So we'll start listing writers who, you know, I think so-and-so would be great for this piece, or, you know, I spoke to so-and-so, I can do this piece myself, and we'll fill that out. And we'll work in the photographers and the designers later in the process, and that spreadsheet stays with us pretty much through the whole process of that issue.
Now, here's something that I was thinking while I was reading the collaboration issue, and maybe it's because I don't have as much background in Chinatown or in hardcore Hawaii, but I have a lot of experience in collaboration. As I was reading it, I was thinking, this is so broad. This is so broad. Did you have any concerns that it might be just too wide open to be an actual topic? You know what I mean?
I don't know if we were too concerned about it. I mean, I think as we generated ideas, we were trying to keep the stories close enough to that theme. You know, we didn't want something that strayed too far from the idea of collaboration that we're like, that doesn't really fit. But with that said, we try to monitor how well it fits with this theme. And with that said, a lot of the ideas we come up with, I don't think it might work with collaboration, but we don't have enough room. Maybe we can squeeze into a later themed issue. And so we try to keep some of the story topics. Well, some of the story topics are very specific that probably wouldn't work in very many other themes. Some of the ideas we come up with are with maybe a little tweak here or just a little tweak there. We can maybe squeeze it into a different issue, work it into a different theme. So we're aware of it, and we try to maintain some semblance. We try to maintain, I guess, a fence or something that'll fit into that theme.
Well, and I think that you're not doing very well in business these days if you're not collaborating.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, that you could talk to anyone about it and they have their story about collaboration. And Does the tail ever wag the dog? Do you ever have you said, this is a story we'd like to tell, what should the issue be that encompasses that?
I don't think so. Yeah, we've got the themes touched upon so far out that I think in general now you got me thinking. Now I'm like, well, maybe
it
we
will
have.
happen if it hasn't already.
Yeah, because actually now that you think about it, I think in the midst of some of our long email conversations, we may have come up with an idea that, what if we had an issue themed around X, Y, or Z? And so it's possible that maybe a story idea led to a theme. I can't think of an example. I don't know if it's happened with the first 3 issues so far, but I know we've entertained the idea where a story seemed to be bigger than just the story itself.
Yeah. Have you, how many articles are in each of the issues about?
A dozen? You'd think I'd know this off the top of my head, but yeah, it looks like it's just a bit over a dozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could take a fairly narrow topic and have a dozen articles written about it. It could get very, very tight.
Good.
Do you think, those conversations that you're having, are you talking about who's reading this? Or are you talking about who's writing it?
A little both. I mean, in the broad sense, we say we're for the 18 to 39 demographic, even though I'm grown out of that demographic. But, that's our general target audience.
I will never grow out of that demographic.
39 forever, no. But, in the broad sense, and that's a pretty wide demographic. I mean, the 20-year-old reader is looking for something different than the 39-year-old reader. But, but we do keep that in mind. We do try to have some stuff that's edgy, some stuff that's a bit more mature and cultured. I forgot your question, I'm sorry.
Well, whether it's the writers who are really driving the decision making,
Right.
or this is what we believe, you would have to really be in communication with the audience in order to design for them.
Right. And we've got, it seems like we've got nothing but positive feedback from our audience. I mean, we don't haven't received any complaints or letters of disgust that we know of. Nothing that's come to our email address. We just published an issue, and nothing but positive responses on our Facebook page and Twitter feeds. But I don't think we're so much, at least from my perspective, I think we're designing our articles to what would I like to read or what would be cool to have in this issue versus thinking, we haven't really got a young type of story in this issue. Let's get something that the 20-year-old audience is going to dig an issue. I don't think we've really, at least I don't, approach each story, each issue in that respect. I think we just want to go with the best content, what we think will be really great content for that theme and that people in general would be interested in, and then just kind of run with that.
Well, you'd probably already have some of that in the room because you have a wide variety of ages and interests
Right.
Around that table. So that's naturally going to lend itself to that. The magazine started primarily for the designers, not the writers, correct?
I mean, I think it came from both sides. I think James and Rule were kind of looking at the content. Let's get this magazine with cool content out there. And then with Matt and the AIGA, who's one of our sponsors, and the Honolulu publishing side, they wanted a proving ground for the designers. So I think in the middle is where you've got this proving ground, and it's not just they could have just gone with a design-heavy magazine that had pretty poor content, or just the nominal amount of content, just there's something written, but we wanted to make sure there was good content and good design. So it's we try to make it a marriage of the two,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Okay, cool. We're going to take another break. We'll be right back. I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm talking with Richard Melendez. This is the Arts in Hawaii. See you in a few.
I'm Bill Spencer, President of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. We do monthly luncheon programs with ThinkTech about things that matter to Hawaii entrepreneurs, investors, and business service providers. So join us on the fourth Thursday of every month at the Plaza Club. For information about upcoming events or to join our mailing list, visit hvca.org. See you there.
Hi, we're back. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech series, and I am Donna Blanchard talking with Richard Melendez of Abstract Magazine. And you know, when I first heard about this magazine, we're going to start this new magazine, and it's going to have the focus of the magazine is going to be different for at least the first few issues. And I thought, this is very exciting when I heard all of the background about it, but something in the back of my head was also thinking, I own a Kindle. You know, I subscribe to, the only magazines that I subscribe to in print are those that are not Vogue, all right? Because you can't look at Vogue on a Kindle because a Kindle's black and white, and I want those big glossy pages. But when it comes to something that is content driven, I would like to have that delivered electronically, online, or on my Kindle. And Abstract Magazine takes a look and a feel that is very important, and a design aspect that isn't even going to look right on a fire, and combines it with the sort of, you're forcing me to pick up this piece of paper. And I think that is a big risk that you're taking. And it seems to be paying off, though. I can tell you that anytime I've taken a stack of these, each time you come out with a new issue, I take a stack of them and plant them at Kumakuhua Theater, and they invariably have disappeared that same night. We cannot keep them.
Fantastic.
So people are picking this up and they're reading it, and our audience is a little older than the audience that you're looking for. I think our average age is 48, but they're absorbing it, and
Right.
some of our artists are even involved in it. So something about it is working. Why do you think that it is working in this day and age when everyone's going paperless? Are you crazy to start a new magazine?
Yes, no. I think, in my opinion, looking at the first 3 issues, just sitting at this desk, how bright it is, I think it proves, in my eyes, that print is still relevant. I mean, I agree with you. There's so much news and magazines I read, and the online version only, or I'll download the PDF, I'll log in, for example. And I mean, I don't even read the newspaper in print anymore. I subscribe to the web content.
Ooh.
But I think doing something like Abstract, and you know, you feel it, you look at it, each page, it's not something you can recreate on the web. It's something that's very unique to print, to this medium, to what we're doing. And I think it shows that, you know, print is not dead. Print is still exciting and relevant. Yes, digital has taken over a lot of the media and killed a lot of the print media in that respect, but I think this shows that there's still a big home for print, and print can still be dynamic and exciting and provide something refreshing and new that can't be recreated online necessarily.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be working, and last time we spoke, we talked a little bit about trying to be in contact with your audience and figure out who they are and what they want, and what sort of avenues are you going down with that now, or talking about going down?
It's pretty much with the social media still. I mean, we do encourage feedback and interaction with our audience. We are a quarterly magazine, and we don't have a website yet, which is in development, and I think we'll be talking about that shortly. But we do try to keep in touch with the audience. We don't want there to be a gap in our feed for 3 months until the next issue comes out. So we're talking with them. We're showing them, hey, we're dropping hints about the next issue. Why is so and so at this site? What are we cooking up? We'll kind of tease things out there. We'll tease the color for the next issue, things like that. Or as we're distributing the magazine, we'll say, hey, we're showing up in Glazier's Cafe right now, or we've just made it to Sure Shot in the Kiki, and things like that. So we try to keep a presence with the audience, and solicit some sort of feedback from them, see how they respond. And again, the response has been all been positive. Everything.
Yeah. The question I always run into with surveys is out of the people who answer the survey, these are the answers that we're getting. Like the last time I surveyed our audience, we got some crazy number, like over 50% of our audience said they are not on Facebook or they are not involved with Facebook. Well, I don't even think that's right. I think that a lot of the people who are involved in Facebook didn't answer the survey. So if people aren't purchasing something and you're not able to say, before I give you this magazine or this ticket, tell me, how did you hear of us? Which we do. Then you can find out, then you can really grasp that. Otherwise, you really don't know where these are going and who's reading these and where they're, who's not reading them, who's picking it up because it looks pretty, but not really cracking the binding once they get home.
And technically, yeah, that's very true. I mean, we haven't had any formal sort of survey that we've put out through any of our website, through our social media. We haven't done any sort of focus groups. We've just been going with what the response has been. We've been putting out this content, these designs, and the feedback has been great. So to date, that seems to work with us so far. I mean, it's good enough for us. If we're putting it out and they're liking it, great. And we know social media and the web in general, if people are displeased, they'll let you know. And I can't think of any negative sort of comments we've received. The closest would be like, hey, how come you're not distributing at this cafe or this restaurant or something?
That's horrible.
I know, just what was us. But I mean, that's probably the closest to a negative comment. And it's not even a comment, it's just more a suggestion. Like, it's their way of saying, I'd love to see you in this cafe or this bar or wherever.
Yeah.
Things like that, yeah.
That's a great comment to have from people. And what are your plans for the future beyond? You've got a few topics lined up for the next couple years, it sounds like?
Well, we've got at least year two broadly mapped out. We're pretty solid on what the theme for issue 5 is going to be. I think we know what the theme for issue 6 is going to be. 7 and 8 is kind of nebulous, but we've got kind of an idea. We haven't nailed it down yet. So that's for the print side of things. The other side of the coin, like I said, we don't have an official website yet. We are trying to develop one. What we're trying to do, though, is to avoid I don't want to say a trap, but the common practice of just whatever's on print, just throwing it out on the web and just having the same design, either maybe a PDF that's downloaded or something. We wanted to do something different, and what we're discussing doing is, as much as the print magazine is an incubator for these emerging designers, we want to develop a sort of incubator for web designers. So we'll have the same content, but where the article that's written will go to one set of designers for the print version. If you go to the web, it's going to have a different designer and a different look and aesthetic about it that they can only do on the web. So instead of trying to recreate what the print edition does online, it's creating a new version of that article online. The same written content,
but the written content is the same.
Right, but the design about it will be new because it'll be a new designer and it's a whole new incubator. So a new testing ground for these designers. That's what we're looking at trying out. That's in development. That's
interesting. It would be interesting to see if people feel differently about the article, coming from the two different venues, outlets. That's interesting. I've never heard anyone. I've never heard of any. I've heard that the web supports what's in print, or the print supports what's in web, whichever one you want to drive, whichever car you want to drive the fastest. Right. But to really let the designers have their way, that's pretty cool.
And I think it's still giving the audience a choice. You can still check it out online, or you can still check it out on print. it's going to be a different experience. You know, I mean, visually it'll be a different experience, but it's, yeah, I mean, it's something I hadn't heard of either until we started talking about it, and it was brought up by the publisher. And I mean, we'll see how that happens when it happens, but that's something we're trying to work out the logistics for on the editorial side and the design side, and what we can make work.
That's interesting, and you know what? That's got to be a little humbling for the writers. You know, I would think to say, no, we're not going to write something new. We're not going to put something new in there. It's just the same words. We're going to let the designers have the show.
Well, that's what we have talked about, including blogs, columns, and when we do have a website, adding other content that's exclusive to the web, too, as well. So that's something else to keep the writers involved.
That's very cool. It's a very cool magazine. You're forcing me to pick it up because it's a cool magazine. I don't have to do it. I appreciate you telling us about that. I appreciate you sharing your background with us also, Richard. And I've got to wrap up. Who am I? I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the managing director of Kumu Theater. This show is The Arts in Hawaii. It's part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series. I've been talking with Richard Melendez, managing editor of Abstract Magazine. Thank you very much to you for watching. Thank you to Ian Davidson, who talks in my ear, our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, who tells you all about us on Facebook and Twitter, and to Jay Fidel, who somehow puts it all together. To check out our previous broadcasts, go to thinktechhawaii.com, and please like us on Facebook. We'll see you next week. Bye.